Chapter 9 The Keeper's Choice. Naomi woke with the taste of iron in her mouth. Her hand burned where the scars had formed, the skin tight, the marks etched deeper than any ink. She sat up in the narrow cot she kept upstairs, heart pounding. The air was heavy, suffused with the musk of old paper and something darker, smoke, earth, blood. She didn't remember falling asleep. She only remembered the ledger and the rush that had filled her veins when she pressed her palm to its page. Now that fire felt like poison. She rose unsteadily, stumbling to the mirror above her desk. What stared back was still her, Naomi Ellison, dark curls wild around her face, strong jaw set against weakness. But her eyes, they glimmered faintly in the dim light, as though someone else peered through them. Her stomach clenched. She turned away sharply. The ledger lay on the desk, closed, yet she could feel it breathing, each pulse tugging at her chest like a thread sewn too tight. The voices came again, clearer now, no longer whispers but commands. Keeper, collect. Keeper, collect. Naomi pressed her palms over her ears, but the sound was inside her head. She felt her hand lift against her will, felt the scars glow faintly, as though the book itself were moving her like a pawn. No, her voice broke against the air. I won't. The air in the room thickened, hot and pressing. The ledger's cover trembled, its leather creaking as if straining to open. Naomi forced her gaze away, clutching her hand to her chest, fighting the rush of heat that begged her to obey. She thought of the librarian's arm, the words carved into her flesh. She thought of the way Julian had looked at her when he saw her mark, fear and something like sorrow, as though he had already lost her. That was the ledger's plan. To devour her piece by piece until Naomi Ellison no longer existed. Her jaw set. You won't take me. She grabbed the ledger, the weight of it anchoring her to the desk. With shaking hands, she pulled open the drawer where she kept the heavy iron letterpress once used to brand book covers. She raised it high, aiming for the ledger's spine. Before the strike fell, a voice ripped through her mind, not whispering now, but screaming, guttural and furious. Her hand seized mid-swing. The heat in her scars seared to agony. She dropped the press, gasping, her body buckling as the ledger's will poured through her veins. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest, sweat dripping down her temples. Julian's voice cut through the haze. Naomi. He burst into the room, his face pale, his hands reaching to steady her. She shook violently, her breath ragged, the marks on her palm glowing with an unholy light. Julian wrapped his arms around her, grounding her against his chest. Fight it. Don't let it use you. Naomi clenched her teeth, forcing her voice through the storm in her skull. It's already inside me. Julian's grip tightened, his words sharp, desperate. Then drive it out. You're stronger than it. You have to be. Naomi squeezed her eyes shut, dragging breath into her lungs, summoning every ounce of will she had ever relied on. She had fought poverty, fought loneliness, fought doubt, fought to build this store from nothing. She would fight this too. Her scream tore the silence as she slammed her marked palm flat against the ledger's cover. The scars burned white hot, but she poured her strength into them, forcing her will against its pull. For a heartbeat, the air split, shadows shrieking, glass rattling in the windows. Then silence. The ledger went still beneath her hand, though she could feel it seething, waiting, plotting. Naomi collapsed into Julian's arms, her breath shallow but steady. Sweat soaked her skin, but her eyes were her own again. She had won for now. But she knew the truth, heavy as the silence between heartbeats. The ledger had changed her. It would never let her go. And her final choice was still coming. Chapter 10 Ink Eternal. The storm came just past midnight. Thunder cracked, so close it rattled the glass in Ellison's rare books, lightning throwing jagged light across the shelves. Naomi stood in her office, the ledger open before her. It pulsed with life. The ink on its pages writhed, spilling names she didn't know, deaths she hadn't collected, cries etched in black across brittle paper. The voices had risen to a fever pitch, 100 whispers clawing for her attention. Julian hovered near the door, his face pale, his body tense with worry. He had begged her to destroy it, begged her to burn the book, begged her to run. But Naomi had made her decision. She was done running. She spread her hands over the ledger, the scars on her palm glowing faintly in the stormlight. The voices surged, trying to drown her, to bend her will into theirs. For a moment she faltered, heat crawling up her spine, shadows swirling at the edges of her vision. Then she spoke, her voice low but steady. No more. The ledger shuddered beneath her hands. The ink bled upward, crawling over her skin, wrapping her arms in black sigils that burned with fire and ice. Naomi grit her teeth and pressed harder, forcing herself deeper into its current. "You've fed on keepers for centuries," she said, her voice rising with each word. "You've bound them, broken them, used them. But you forgot something." The voices hissed, furious, their whispers turning to screams. Naomi leaned closer, her breath sharp, her eyes blazing. "A keeper isn't just chosen. A keeper chooses." The ink froze mid-crawl. The storm outside split with a violent crack of thunder, as if the heavens themselves reeled back. Naomi felt the book straining against her, trying to wrench free. But she pushed harder, forcing her will into its spine, into its pages, into its soul. And then she rewrote it. With each breath, she scrawled new rules across its being. Debts could no longer be collected in the blood of the innocent. The ledger's power would answer to her, and her alone. The voices shrieked, fracturing into shards of sound, until one by one they fell silent. The ink settled. Her scars glowed with a final flash, then cooled, leaving her marked but unbroken. The ledger lay still beneath her hands, no longer a master, but a servant bound to her command. Naomi lifted her head slowly. Her reflection in the darkened window showed a woman transformed, shoulders squared, eyes fierce, her very presence crackling with quiet power. Julian stepped closer, his voice hushed. "Naomi, what did you do?" She turned to him, her lips curling into something between a smile and a vow. "I stopped being theirs." And now, she rested her hand on the ledger, her touch calm, possessive. "It's mine." The storm outside quieted as if bowing to her will. The shelves stood still, the whispers gone. For the first time since discovering the book, Allison's rare books felt truly hers again. But Naomi knew the truth. The ledger hadn't been destroyed. It had been reshaped. Its hunger had not died. It had been redirected. And now, every page, every word, every debt was bound to her hand. She wasn't free, but she was keeper, on her terms. And in that moment, Naomi Ellison realized something that made her chest ache with both triumph and dread. Power was no longer her burden. It was her legacy.